So we used to be a college radio show on our nice little DAB internet radio station. We're taking it, a pirate radio show now, I guess. This is going to be edited into a podcast. We do it every Thursday at 7:00. And hopefully we can keep it themed if we can think of enough things. So this week's Colts. Chris, you've got a list coming up. Kai, you've got fan mail that we've received because we've already done one show. All the fans were flocking in.
The fan mail's been through the roof. I've had to narrow it down to one special individual, but it's been mental. And that's just week 1. So imagine what week 5 is going to look like.
It's going to be obscene. We have got international fans. I mean, we've got one fan at the moment listening in, but they all come flocking in. Hopefully we'll have hundreds of thousands. Don't forget to be on Spotify, iTunes, podcast.com, was it? Something along that line.
I hope so.
I looked it up and it actually isn't a website, but I thought it was.
Oh,
let us down. So we were talking about Colts. I can't control myself already. And obviously there was the main ones that came up, but we'll talk about the main ones later on. And Heaven's Gate was one of the main ones that sort of popped onto the radar. And we found out that they were still active, and they've got 8 members across the US at the moment. So
they're really repping.
Exactly. Obviously, we didn't realise they were still active because they've got a famous history of dying.
Suicide.
Exactly. So we emailed. I took it upon myself to email them to see if they'd contact us. I tried to make it sound as serious as possible. So this is his email I sent to a rep from Heaven's Gate. And the subject line was "Greetings, Earthlings," which probably wasn't the best start. But it says, "Good afternoon from the UK. We're currently working on a pirate radio show, and we are interlocked in discussion about the history and future of Heaven's Gate. We were wondering if we could have more information that isn't necessarily included on your website so we can discuss this further. Regards, Cold to the Touch." I didn't think they were going to reply. I only sent that about 15 minutes ago. During Bob Dylan's song, I got an email back that just says, "We interview via email," and then a full stop. Nothing else. There's no quote.
Wow.
There's no header. It just says, "We interview via email." I've got no other information. I haven't replied. But
that's a Cold to the Touch exclusive, though. So for anyone that was interested in getting in touch with Heaven's Gate, they only interview via email. So just keep that in mind when you talk to them, yeah?
Their email address is rep@heavensgate.com if anyone wants to get in contact with them and ask any pressing questions.
If you're looking for a suicide pact, there you guys. All right? So just hit them out.
Yeah.
There we go. So we've doxed Heaven's Gate, which is always, we've got to have at least one dox per show.
It's public information.
Yeah, you can find it on Google.
Yeah. Just go to their website. It has a contact email address at the bottom.
Hopefully, we can get a bit of discussion going with them and it can become an ongoing thing. And then hopefully we can eventually join because they haven't got any members in the UK at the moment.
No.
Fingers crossed. We'll start the first UK sale.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys have been to their website, but it looks like it hasn't been updated in like 20 years. It's all like super like retro internet sort of stuff.
It's like classic late 90s internet page, yeah. I can't say I'm surprised.
Coming back from that, we've got another song to play by the Colts, and then we've got Chris, you're going to start us off with your top 10 list.
Yeah, my top 10 Colts lists.
There we go. So we're slowly becoming Watch Mojo. And then after that, Kai is going to talk through the fan mail we've received. Chris, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so today's list is top 10 Colts. I've just decided to go through a bunch of famous Colts and list the ones that I think are the most interesting, not necessarily the ones that we agree with. Number 10 is the Branch Davidians. So basically they were like this religious cult who believed that their kingdom was to bring about peace on earth and goodwill toward men. Their leader, David Koresh, managed to convince more than 100 people to move to their compound outside of Waco, Texas, and follow his teachings. which included his belief that men could have multiple wives, including girls as young as 10 years old. They ended with a
Wow.
They ended with a 51-day standoff with the FBI, which ended with 75 people dying.
Oh,
Let me guess, that was
film Red State.
75 cult people and not the police.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was all
Yeah,
occult people.
Exactly.
Weren't they
Pathetic.
siphoning guns in, though? There wasn't something else going on behind the scenes. It wasn't just
Probably
that they
who
were
knows?
just ordinary church. I'm pretty sure that they had guns in there. And it was... I know there was a massive conspiracy that the FBI shot first, but it was a mess. But I know I'm sure they were like selling arms in there.
Yeah, I mean, if you've taken 10-year-olds as captives, I can't blame the FBI for shooting first, to be honest with you.
No,
I think it's justified at that point.
I suppose. All right, Chris, number 9.
Number 9 is called the Family International. They were previously known as the Children of God. They were established in the late 60s by David Berg, who was a traveling preacher. They believed in free love, and it reportedly involved female members recruited with sex, which was sometimes known as flirty fishing. And some of the survivors say that children were regularly abused. Apparently, both Rose McGowan and Joaquin Phoenix grew up in the Children of God. It was later rebranded and changed its name to the Family of Love, and later the Family International after it had been labelled a cult and investigated by the FBI and Interpol.
I've actually heard about this because, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix did grow up in this cult. I haven't researched anything about Rose McGowan, but I know for a fact that Joaquin Phoenix grew up in this cult and he still follows a lot of the teachings of this cult.
Jesus. Do the FBI have to investigate anything that's classed as a cult?
Yeah. You
See,
don't want
we
to
couldn't
repeat of Charles Manson.
Yeah.
We couldn't just start a cult to the touch cult and we'd be
I think we'd be
investigated if
okay
we
because
did.
in the UK, cults aren't really a thing, are they? It's more an American thing.
I guess
We
it
could start a
depends
cult.
how many people we get on our side and if our cult teachings become violent at all.
Yeah.
I suppose so, yeah. But isn't that more like terrorism?
Kind of.
There must be
we're
a
not-
fine
we're not
line between it, though.
terrorists, but, yeah.
All right,
I
Chris,
just think we need to be careful.
number 8.
So number 8 is the Order of the Solar Temple. It was formed by Luc Jouret, a Belgian religious leader and neo-Nazi who started the group in 1984 under Christian guises, namely the Second Coming of Christ and the Knights Templar. Jouret and other leaders in a Swiss village allegedly sacrificed a child they thought to be the Antichrist in 1994, and days later committed suicide with dozens of followers. And the French consider the organisation to be criminal today, supposedly.
Jesus.
Christ almighty, Chris, you've really gone in dark here.
I mean, there's not really such thing as a happy cult.
I don't know.
No,
The loved one sounded all right.
the Wiggles.
All right, number 7.
Number 7 is Shinriko. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it. It was founded in the 80s by Shoka Ashihara. He claimed to be Christ and at one point garnered tens of thousands of followers across the world. His teaching started out spiritual and then became increasingly violent, and some cult members even paid money to drink his blood. And on March 20th, 1995, their whole cult left 5 bags filled with a toxic nerve agent on 3 Tokyo train lines during rush hour, and 13 people died and 5,800 were injured.
Oh my god.
Apparently the cult
Jesus.
tried and failed to attack other subway stations with a deadly cyanide.
Bloody hell, Chris.
I thought this was going to be way more lighthearted.
Yeah, same. When he said I've made the top 10 list, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's Chris's classic top 10 list. Not these people have actually committed hate crimes, and a lot of them are nonces.
Hate
Like, that's
crime,
not what I expected. going into this.
bioterrorism. All right, number 6, Chris.
Number 6 is Villa Baviera, also known as Colonia Dignidad. It was a commune of German immigrants that was founded in 1961 by Paul Schaefer-Schneider, a former Nazi Party member. Human rights groups argue that Chile's secret police used the compound to torture and interrogate subjects, and former members have since issued apologies for molesting children as well. So, some more nonsense.
Right. So, how did the Chileans get involved with this cult then? Because
I don't know.
It sounds like this cult is very German.
My research was very basic because I was worried I'd be ended up on a FBI watch list. So this is all I've got.
I think that's fair enough.
Go just
like surface level for that sort of search. You don't want to be too deep in.
That we're saying top 10 just based on interest. We're not encouraging, condoning terrorist attacks.
Yeah, if you join a cult, you're an idiot. Basically.
Yeah,
just don't do it.
Unless it's our cult, of course.
The cult of Cold to the Touch.
The sleds. There we go. Sorry.
Drinking beer on a podcast. Unprofessional.
It's all the excitement of being able to just do and say what we want. I just thought, I could just drink beer, because that'd have been the dream when we were doing our DAB show. To start smashing in beer.
College.
To be fair, we probably would have been able to get away with it.
We were the gods of radio. I don't think we can say the name, so we'll just say radio. All right,
Jam
Chris.
Radio.
Oh, there we go. So, Chris, number 2 from your list, please.
So number 5 is probably the only one that isn't kind of dark and violent. It is a group called the Raelians. They're a church that believed that UFOs spawned most religions, that mind transfer is possible, and that cloning can lead to reincarnation. It was started in France in the 1970s by Claude Vorilhon, and one of their followers made headlines in 2003 because they claimed to have conceived the first cloned human, but it was later revealed to be a hoax.
Oh, there we go. Kaiser clones.
It's not something you really associate with the French, to be honest.
What, clones?
Just like mental cult members. Like, I feel like it's a very American thing.
Yeah.
I don't really know, isn't it? Because it's only Charles Manson's the sort of the main cult is always in the headlines, and they were
he's
famously American.
He's the figurehead, yeah, but you don't really associate cults with anyone outside of America.
No, I guess not. All right, Chris, number 4.
Number 4 is the People's Temple. They were led by Jim Jones. They had many remote settlements across America, the most well-known being their location dubbed as Jonestown. And one of their US congressmen decided to visit the People's Temple in their location in Guyana in 1978. And apparently he was shot and killed by 4 members. After this, Jones instructed all of his followers to drink Kool-Aid laced with cyanide. Over 900 dead bodies were discovered at the settlement, including Jones, who had a bullet wound to the head. One of the members of the cult had a suicide note, which was unsigned, that said, "If nobody understands, it matters not. I am ready to die now. Darkness settles over Jonestown on its last day on Earth."
There we go.
Hell. Is that the Brian Jonestown massacre?
It's the one in South Africa. I watched a documentary on BBC. It's basically the guy was a fucking lunatic in the nicest way possible. I have no idea how no one noticed, because he was shipping in gallons and gallons of cyanide, not just like a little bit. Like, there was tubs of this stuff coming in. They were all bringing him in, and the only reason people followed him to begin with was because he was uniting the white and black in South Africa, because it was apartheid, and he was giving a pledge to him that was like, "Oh, you can come visit and be yourself," basically. And then it just went all downhill from there. And
there's a band called Brian Jonestown Massacre, and I think they've taken the name after that. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd assume so now after hearing that.
Yeah, it was all in Africa. I don't think it started in Africa, but I know it certainly ended there. And
it started in America, and it kept having to move where their locations were.
I was more concerned when we were watching the documentary of this. Imagine being a cult member and someone asking you to move 3 gallons worth of cyanide and not being able to ask questions about it.
See, thing is, when you're in a cult, though, you don't question that sort of thing because I suppose you're just saying to yourself that it's all for the greater good.
I suppose, but there's definitely a line to be drawn.
Yeah, for sane people, but for mental people,
Well, they weren't mental; they were just normal families they basically had cheap living. Because he
were
was
they,
like,
though? I mean,
yeah,
if they joined a
because
cult, they're not normal. Let's be real, they're not normal.
well, it wasn't a cult to begin with, was it? It was just a normal church.
Oh, was it just like a religion?
Yeah, it was just like a normal preacher. They just wanted to unite everyone.
Yeah, but even still, it's not like Christianity, is it? It's some nutter just talking bollocks in his local church, and you've just happened to join up with it. I mean, you've got to be quite silly to join up with that. Let's be real.
Suppose. All right, Chris, finish the top 3 then off.
Okay. Number 3 is the one we've talked about probably the most today, the Manson family. Formed by failed musician Charles Manson. He brought together a group of displaced young people and called them his family. They settled in a ranch, which was a famous former movie studio in LA. Their drugs were free-flowing, mandatory orgies were enforced, and Manson pushed his ideas about an imminent race war. They told his followers that he wanted to go on a killing spree, and on August 8th, 1969, a few members of the cult headed to a Beverly Hills home and murdered 5 people, including actress Sharon Tate. They wrote the word pig in her blood on the door, and the following night, they also killed Rosemary and Leno. I can't even pronounce her name, but they murdered someone else the next day. Also, yeah, that's it. By Manson's followers on his orders. Rosemary was stabbed 14 times, and yeah, it's a very famous story that I'm sure everyone knows about now.
If you were looking to go a bit more in depth with it, though, I suggest a podcast called You Must Remember This, and they do a 10-part series on the Manson murders, basically, and they go into depth about Manson's past and Sharon Tate's past, and it's just a really great podcast series, and I highly suggest it. It's great.
I don't really know anything like aside from like the big stuff there was reported on. Obviously, he killed Roman Polanski's wife, girlfriend Sharon Tate. Once Upon a Time loosely did a film adaptation.
Yeah.
Last year, 2019 was that?
Yeah.
So they obviously go into that. Obviously, most of it's not true. Brad Pitt didn't go in and kick cult members' asses, but they still they touch a little bit of base on it.
There was a stunt double that did get killed on that ranch. So when I was watching the film for the first time, I thought Brad Pitt was going to die. Basically, I mean, spoiler alert, he doesn't die. But I was literally like, okay, Brad Pitt's going to die here because there was a stunt double that went to that ranch and got killed.
It's a touchy subject anyway. I didn't realise they were trying to start a race war. I really didn't know what they stood for. I just thought it was a lunatic that liked drugs.
I mean, Charles Manson was an absolute fucking lunatic. So.
Most of them are, to be fair.
I just basically thought it was a bunch of people who were huge fans of his music that were like hardcore fans and followed him till their deaths, essentially.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. And
it was lonely girls who had like a lot of drug addictions and stuff like that. He took in, basically.
Didn't wash.
Yeah, and he was like, I can offer you like a place to stay and like food. And they jumped at the chance because obviously they were like basically on the streets and they had nowhere else to go.
It makes sense, but surely again there must be a ethical line you draw. But
when the man you're following has tattooed a swastika on his forehead and said, "Okay, go and kill a load of people in Beverly Hills," you must at that point go, "Nah, do you know what, Charles? I think I'm all right, mate."
He also tried to kill one of the Beach Boys members, but they weren't home at the time, so he didn't do it.
Yeah, because the only reason he went to Sharon Tate's house is because Terry Melcher used to live there, who was the manager of the Beach Boys at the time, and I forget which Beach Boy member it was that stayed there.
I think it was Dennis Wilson who stole one of Charles Manson's songs.
Yeah, that's the one. He was meant to be at Terry Melcher's house. Yeah. He did, yeah.
We've got one of his songs up next.
Oh, there we go. So we'll play some of his music. I mean, how long? Because he released an album in 2003, didn't he? Was it 2003?
Did he?
It was a 2000s album, yeah, that he brought out.
Doesn't surprise me.
I mean, and he died, 6 years ago? It wasn't long ago.
Maybe less than that.
Yeah, it's madness.
I can't believe Brian Wilson's still alive, to be honest with you.
I'm still shocked. I mean, I know it's a bit of a digression, but you're convinced that Brian Wilson's dead most of the time.
I swear to God, during that film I watched about the Beach Boys, more specifically Brian Wilson, I swear he died at the end.
No, I watched it a couple of days ago and he didn't. There was a scene where Paul Giamatti changed his will, so he basically got all his inheritance if he died, and it showed him looking dead on a bed. So maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Maybe.
It's just peace. All right, Chris, number 2.
Number 2 is Scientology. It was founded by L. Ron Hubbard and based around his program of ideas called Dianetics, the core belief being that apparently humans are immortal spiritual beings known as Thetans, and they're resident in a physical body. The Thetan has had innumerable past lives, some of which preceding the Thetan's arrival on Earth were lived in an extraterrestrial cultures. Based on case studies at advanced levels, it is predicted that any Scientology undergoing audity will eventually come across and recount a common series of events. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend a documentary called Going Clear, which I watched a few weeks ago, which is all about Scientology. It's incredibly in-depth. I think my favourite scene in the film is where a couple of the ex-Scientology members talk about how the leader made them play musical chairs to Bohemian Rhapsody, and the last person standing who won was going to be the only person who'd stay in Scientology, and the rest would be kicked out. And in the end, he said, because you were all really great and tried hard and showed passion, you all get to stay. And it was just a big waste of their time.
Bloody hell.
Scientology is a tough one because it's not. Is it a cult or is it?
Yes,
it's an organised religion, though, isn't it? At the same time,
it's a cult.
But they've got tens of thousands. I mean, Tom Cruise famously pays
John Travolta as well.
Yeah, John Travolta's a Scientologist.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Also, weirdly, Elizabeth Moss.
Really?
But she grew up in it, to be fair. Her parents are both Scientologists, so she's been brought up with it. But at the same time, it's like, at what point do you go, the fact that I have to pay to get to my next level of, whatever it is, it seems a bit dodgy to me, to be honest.
At the same time, though, I just don't understand how it got this far. If they've got thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. I don't know if anyone's watched the Louis Theroux documentary where he tries to infiltrate him.
Yeah.
And they were following him around, filming him. He was getting death threats. Why?
Yeah, he got if you haven't seen it, also, another film, I suggest The Master. It's like an origin story of Scientology, basically.
Yeah, watching that documentary the other day, I was surprised at how many parallels there are between The Master and the real life story of Scientology.
Well, basically, the director of The Master, Paul Thomas Anderson, screened it for Tom Cruise, who's like a diehard Scientologist at this point. And apparently Tom Cruise just stood up at the end of the screening and went, "You cannot show that to anybody." He walked out of the screening room and has not talked to Paul Thomas Anderson since. So, friendship ruined.
It's got Philip Seymour Hoffman and that The Master.
Yeah.
There we go. So, we've given loads of recommendations. The Master, Louis Theroux's documentary. Chris, what was your one?
Going Clear.
I'll have to watch that. It sounds interesting.
I think it's on Prime. Pretty sure that's how I watched it. It's either Prime or BFI Player.
Decent.
There we go. I'm not going to start a war with Scientology because they've got thousands of members. If there's anyone we're not going to war with, it's definitely them.
because they will come for you as well. Like they will track you down no matter where you are.
All right, Chris, number one.
Number one is our favourite cult, Heaven's Gate. We've been talking to him throughout this podcast. Their believers believed that planet Earth would be recycled, wiped clean, renewed, refurbished, and rejuvenated before 2027. And the only chance for their consciousness, defined sometimes as soul or mind, to survive was to leave their human bodies at an appointed time. Initially, they were told that they would be transported with their bodies aboard a spacecraft that would come to Earth and take them to heaven. However, in the end, they participated in a mass suicide, which coordinated in a series of ritual suicides, and apparently they believed it would help them reach what they believed was an extraterrestrial spacecraft following a comet back in 1997. There's 8 members still alive who were told to stay behind and keep the website and email address running to I don't know why they're still alive. I assume just to keep people educated and stuff like that.
I mean, they should have gone. If they were diehard followers, they should have gone with the rest of them.
Imagine being the poor guy that's got to stay behind while everyone else transcends.
It's like, you're promised the best afterlife in the world, and the bloke goes to you, yeah, you need to stay behind and deal with the emails. You'd be fuming, wouldn't you?
That's probably why he's so pissed off every time he's emailed me.
Yeah.
He's drawn the shorts. He's had his first email in about 10 years. And he's probably like, oh, for fuck's sake.
How many emails have you got? How many emails have you got now?
I've got 3 emails from him. And I'll read out basically the email chain we've had from him before we start a full-blown war with Heaven's Gate. So... they emailed me back saying we interviewed via email, full stop, no name, nothing. So I just said, okay, thank you for your prompt response. How do we arrange this? And the last response I got, which was about 10 minutes later, just said, start asking your questions now. So I haven't replied to that yet. Wow. I'm just sort of waiting to see if we can think of a question. More importantly, I want to know who this one person is that's just sat here emailing me aggressively.
Yeah. I mean, if there's 8 members left, there must be just one bloke just sat on emails all day. Like,
they must still get money though, because there's no way this is he's working a normal 9-to-5 job and then replying to people's emails at the same time.
Yeah, it would be a little strange, wouldn't it?
I'm trying to think what else is related. Another recommendation, not that we're just firing them off at this point. Propane Nightmares by Pendulum. That's about Heaven's Gate. I think it's about Heaven's Gate. I'm about 90% sure. That's always worth a listen to.
Is Pendulum like the drum and bass sort of group?
They're like a version of The Prodigy, but they've released a song with a song about it, and there's a music video as well.
My manager at work bloody loves Pendulum, and I cannot stand them.
Yeah, I know quite a few people who they're like their favourite band, and I don't mind them, I just don't really understand it.
Yeah, no. I just don't get it at all.
But we digress from Heaven's Gate. I'm sure we'll have more sort of exclusives from them when we email them back. We just got to think of a question to ask them first. Beach Boys.
Never Learn Not to Love, a song originally written by Charles Manson, but one of the Beach Boys stole it, which is why they had a huge feud and Charles Manson tried to kill him.
I can understand that. You know what I mean? Like, it's your intellectual property. You wrote the song. Go and murk that guy. You know what I mean? Just stab him, kill him.
Oh my God, we don't condone murder.
Yeah, no, I've gone too far there. I don't condone that.
I'm going to re-release Pacifist as my own song, I think.
Yeah, have a friendly conversation with the man and be like, look, this isn't on. You've nicked my song. Let's work from here.
I'm glad Chris had me covered then, because I dropped my drink just as the song was ending and was trying to catch my bearings back. All right, we've got a few things to talk about. Kai, do you want to start with fan mail before I talk about my thing?
Fan mail? Yeah, sure.
There we go. So we get fan mail.
It's been wild so far.
Chris, do you want to tell them the email address that they can send fan mail into?
Yes. 2 seconds. I need to find out what the email address is because I don't have it to hand.
Classic. I mean, week 1, we didn't even have to give out the email, and some lunatic has already emailed us, basically.
So
We're
the
just
email
waiting on Chris now.
The email address is coldtothetouch2020@gmail.com.
That's a solid email account.
Thanks.
No worries. Right, I do apologise in advance for my monotone voice. But I'm going to read this fan mail, and it's not pretty. So basically, this guy who wishes to remain nameless has said, "Hello, Cold to the Touch. I'm so glad you've returned. I couldn't believe my luck last week when I was scrolling through twitch.tv, the best live streaming website, and I found your channel. I had to get in touch with you immediately, and the only thing that got me through the weeks was your show. Since you've been gone, my life has spiraled. I have insider info that this week's show is about cults. What a bloody coincidence that is. I've just joined a cult. Our cult is dedicated to the life and times of Al Pacino. We love Al. At the start of every meeting, we sing the Al Pacino Chocolatino song from Jack and Jill. It's an absolute blast. This is the second cult I've joined. This cult are a lot more accepting than the cult I joined beforehand. My first cult was based around the teachings and readings of Hulk Hogan, who on a closer inspection was actually a closet racist. These readings inspired a number of members to adopt a few unsavoury tendencies, most notably the use of the phrase brother. At the end of every sentence / statement, I couldn't even carry on there. The use of the word brother made me scared for my life. Although my Al Pacino cult are a little rowdy, it's all good-natured rowdiness. We mostly just repeat Al's most extreme line readings, such as, "She's got a great arse, and you've got your head all the way up it," and "Don't ask me about my business, Kay." A few of the members have to have had fucking hell. Complicated language here by the emailer. A few of the members have had to be expelled because they went full Michael Corleone, which wasn't very much fun for anyone. Anyways, I'm rambling. It's great to have you guys back, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the flesh while you sleep. It's a bit weird. Attica, Attica, Attica. I'm not sure if that Al quote is even relevant anymore, but justice for the victims of Attica. So, there we go.
Oh, there we go. So it was our first fan mail by a nameless correspondent.
Bloody mental, honestly. I mean, the fans we get, they're as dedicated as you come. I mean, I don't want him to be in my bedroom while I'm sleeping, but that's dedication. You know what I mean? You've got to respect it. He's out here and he's dedicated. So respect to whoever sent that in. We love you.
There we go.
Yeah, keep the fan mail coming in, and we'll read all our favourite ones out on air.
Frank Zappa, what's the song called, Chris?
A token of my extreme.
Right. Well, that went a bit off rails at the end there. When Frank Zappa's whispering in our ears.
I think out of every song on this playlist, that's the only one I've not listened to. I just saw it's about Scientology, and Frank Zappa's a pretty weird guy. So
yeah, he's proved that as well. If you're watching on the Twitch stream, he's proved to you that he's a fucking weirdo.
All right, so we spoke about Heaven's Gate earlier on. There's too much excitement. So we had a bit of a back and forth with Heaven's Gate. Is it rep at Heaven if people want to email them and ask them questions?
It is rep@heavensgate.com.
All right, so I'm still getting emails back from the nameless account, basically. And the last thing they said was we interview via email. So I was like, I'm going to start asking them questions because I'm curious, and I'm getting answers back. But every one answer I get is leading up to about 8 different questions that I want to ask. So I'm currently in a heated debate with a nameless person from Heaven's Gate. So I started asking her questions. So the first email we sent was, okay, thank you. So you have 8 members remaining across I imagine the USA, do you take on new followers? Because they're still active. What's the point of being active if you're not taking on new followers?
Exactly.
So I got another nameless email back saying, no, the group came to an end in 1997 and there are no new members and no one can join. So
Wow.
I was stunned, but I emailed back and said, okay, so is this account dedicated to purely answering questions? And I'm guessing you're not spreading the word of Heaven's Gate anymore. And literally about a second later, I got an email back and said, it does both. We joined at the beginning in 1975 and then instructed us to maintain the website and email and disseminate the information of the next level via the site, and interviews. So I just emailed back and said, oh, that must suck. So if no one's allowed to join, then what the fuck is the next level and what's going to happen going on forward? And I'm still currently waiting a reply. And I've also sent them Kai's phone number in case they want to contact us.
You haven't actually, have you?
No, I have.
Oh, Callum. Why have you done that?
Because I wanted to move the email away from email, so I just thought I'd give them your contact information.
For fuck's sake. If I'm going to get stalked now by Heaven's Gate...
my question...
hell.
Oh, they've just... Hang on. So, my ultimate question is why are you still active if there is no going forward? And they've basically sent me a link to a Vimeo account where they've got loads of propaganda about how in the distant future the world is going to come to an end and we need to be prepared to move to this new planet going forward. But technically we're not allowed to join Heaven's Gate, so I don't know how they expect us to go forward from it.
Yeah, who are they taking with them to this other planet? The 8 people that are still a member of Heaven's Gate cult. Like, come on. Accept new members. Take us with you. I want to go.
To be honest, I would love to watch it, but they've just sent me a 4-hour-long episode 1 of 12. So I've got 47 hours worth of videos to watch.
You've got a lot of Heaven's Gate propaganda to get through, basically.
I'm heavily confused because, again, return to the planet in the distant future, and our role is to prepare mankind for it. But I guess they're not going to be part of Heaven's Gate because they're sending me videos from the 80s of the original leader of Heaven's Gate telling me to join. And the worst thing is the response that Google has given me just says, thanks, I'll check it out. And that's automatically been sent to them. So hopefully we can all join the next level. But I want to keep asking questions to them because there's so many.
Let's keep going. We're in deep now.
I think
we need to know details about Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, we can carry on. We've got plenty of music to keep us going. And I've got plenty more questions.
We've got plenty of time. So I guess we can all watch that big series and maybe at the end we'll be converted.
We'll end it a little bit soon. All right. We wanted to talk about the history of that song because it's definitely got history. It's not just a random Beatles song they released. We can talk about that. Kai, you've also got a complicated relationship with the Beatles as well, which we can talk about a little bit more. So, Chris, do you want to introduce us and tell us what that song's about?
I don't know what it's about, but I know it was considered one of the first heavy metal songs, which is kind of understandable because it is very loud and out there compared to literally any other thing that they ever did. And obviously, Charles Manson then ended up using it as the nickname for his series of murders, which is why they're called the Helter Skelter murders. And I think the biography book about him and the Manson family is called Helter Skelter as well. I started reading it and then had to finish it early because it was really depressing and dark and I didn't like it.
Yeah, didn't he name the I don't know if it was him that actually named the murders the Helter Skelter murders, but I know somebody did. And then there's a big biography called Helter Skelter about the Manson murders, basically, and everything that led up to that. So the White Album was basically Charles Manson claiming that album had hidden messages for him and the Manson family about the race wars that were about to happen. So he ran with that. Well, he made it up basically, and he just ran with his made-up version of the meaning of that album and just preached it to his followers and that. So,
Have you guys ever listened to the album in full?
I haven't, no, because it's like 3 hours long.
I've only heard that, and I think that was because we played it on Seat to the T back in the day.
Yeah. I think it's one of my favourite albums by him, but so much of it is literally just garbage nonsense.
Yeah, it's too long. Like, I find that with a lot of Beatles stuff, like the classic Beatles stuff that people go on about is just, it's too long and it's filled with too much just fucking bollocks. Like, sorry, but if you're a Beatles fan, grow up.
Well, you've got not just like, you understand that the Beatles have got massive hits and they were an influence. You just take issue with them in general, I guess.
Like, I mean, the Beatles, they have a long history and they've influenced a lot of modern rock and roll, but a lot of it is just shit. It's outdated shit, and I can't be arsed with it. I cannot be bothered to sit down and listen to a Beatles album.
I'd say they're honestly one of my favourite bands, but there's not a single album that doesn't have at least one or two really terrible songs on it.
Yeah, I mean, give me I Am the Walrus every day of the week. I'll listen to that non-stop. But all your other bollocks, just piss off. I don't want to hear it.
You guys have both seen that Gus Johnson video where he says about the Beatles songs, he says like, this is the most beautiful song ever written, and straight after, this is one of the dumbest songs ever written.
Yes,
I have. Yeah.
It's a strong argument. All right, so we're not going to close out just yet. We've got a couple more songs, but we've definitely got a little bit more to talk about Heaven's Gate because we've still had further communications with them. I think we might have started a bit of a war against them, which will be interesting to talk about. So, I mean, what's become the predominant topic of this has been Heaven's Gate, especially as we've all drank more and more as this has gone forward. We've actually entered a proper email discussion with them where the guy that's emailing me is currently trying to tell me that I'm wrong about what I've emailed him. And I think he stopped replying because I've asked too many questions. But every time he replies, he's just said there's no members. And I'm like, I've just emailed back saying, what are you then? And I've just not had a reply. I've just had a link to, again, the Vimeo account. And I just said, does it not suck that you've been left behind? That was the question. So it was left at, are you not upset that you were left behind and everyone else got to transcend with the religion or whatever? And the response was, they've already been here several times over our civilization. So I just emailed back and went, what on earth does that mean? And he just said, we are honoured to be selected. The time difference between them and us leaving is only an eye blink to the next level.
Right, well.
So I've just emailed back and said, that hasn't answered my question. Do you not feel like you've missed out? How do we get to go with them if no one else has joined? Because I quite fancy going to the next level.
Yes, then. We need to keep going at this guy. We need to hound him.
I'm surprised
he realises how stupid he sounds.
I'm surprised that even after 23 years, after everyone else has died, they're still like 100% committed to the cause.
That was. I just want to know: is he annoyed that he's had to stay behind while everyone else gets to transcend? Because this
ask
poor
him
guy
if he's ever listened
out.
to Brian Jonestown Massacre.
I don't. I'm more concerned, to be honest, that this guy's doubled down on the fact that he's been selected, but he hasn't been because he's been left behind.
You'd be a bit gutted, really, wouldn't you, if you were just left behind? You were the one that was like, yeah, fuck it, you can stay behind and deal with emails.
It's like being picked last in PE.
Yeah, literally. He's the one that was like, yeah, you're shit at football, so we're picking you last, and you can just fucking stand back and deal with all the bollocks that we don't want to deal with.
The thing is, though, it keeps going on about this next level thing, and I've asked at least 4 times now, what the next level's about. And all he's done is just send me previous propaganda. He did send me a link to something called Our Position Against Suicide, which I'm not going to read out because it's just waffle, basically. If we're gonna start a religious war against anyone, it better be Heaven's Gate.
At least they have morals.
Well, not really, because it's not really against suicide. It's basically just like a long thing against. I'll read out some of the highlights from it. It says that we're only physical vehicles, bodies. So basically, our minds can transcend or transition into anywhere we want. That we desire, expect, and look forward to boarding a spacecraft using our minds, but our physical bodies will be left behind, and it's just our brains that will be picked up in the inevitable near future. But what happens between now and then is up to is a big question. So it's up to our imagination, basically. They are aware of several physical possibilities that could happen. Oh my God, it goes on. So basically, they say that one or more of us could lose our physical bodies, previously saying that all of us are going to lose our physical body. And due to recall, an accident, or at the hands of some irate individual, that we can lose our body. So some alien up there has gone, ha, that guy's not taking his body with him, and they've left him behind, but they've taken his mind with him, and his body gets chucked into some other vessel. So poor fucker's going to look like E.T. while everyone else is a normal human.
Yeah, I was going to say, do they believe in aliens then? Like, some people are going to be really rough looking, and others are going to be just like chilling like a human.
Exactly. So it doesn't make sense from there.
No.
As it's always been our way to examine all possibilities and be mentally prepared for whatever may come our way. For example, consider what happened to Mazda, I don't know, it's a random word. It's 73 AD, and they go on to waffle about the Jewish religion. Well, it's not waffle if you're religious, but I mean, it looks like waffle in this.
It is waffle.
Yeah, so I'll read it out because I've just read the paragraph and I want to know your opinion on it. So, around 73 AD, a devout Jewish sect, after holding out against the siege by the Romans to the best of their ability and seeing that the murder, rape, and torture of their community was inevitable, determined that it was permissible for them to evacuate their bodies by a more dignified and less agonizing method. So, their position against suicide isn't necessarily negative, it's just, if it comes to it, why not, I guess?
Yeah. If it comes to it, you're under too much stress. Just do yourself in.
That's essentially what they're saying. So the true meaning of suicide is to turn against the next level when it is being offered. In these last days, we are focused on two primary tasks. One, of making a last attempt at telling the truth about how the next level may be entered. Our last effort offering to the individuals of this civilization the way to avoid suicide, and two, taking advantage of the rare opportunity we have each day to work individually on our personal overcoming and change in preparation for entering the kingdom of heaven.
Do you know what? There's some of it that I agree with.
No.
Hear me out. Like, the overcoming of like daily shit, like trying to make yourself a better person, basically. I agree with that. But then they just go too far. Like, that's the thing with cults. They just take one thing and they just go too far with it and they just run with it. And it's beyond the point of, like, sanity. And they're just talking bollocks.
I mean, personally, it all looks like bollocks, to be honest. Any website that's got an article that says statement by ET is obviously a little bit loopy.
Wait, did I actually say statement by ET?
Yeah, so if you go on their website that was made, oh my God, if you go on their website and type, there's an article that says how a member of the kingdom of heaven might appear. And it's essentially a drawing of a generic alien that's wearing a silver tinfoil suit. And it just says that. It just says how a member of the kingdom of heaven might appear, and then a little alien man.
Nice.
Mate, if the little aliens were the kingdom of heaven, I'm well up for heaven.
They've stopped replying to me, so I guess we can't join them anytime soon.
Yeah, we've gone too far. We've taken it too far, and they're not willing to talk
maybe
to us
they tracked
anymore.
down the podcast and have been listening in.
Maybe they've got Kai's contact details if worse comes to worse. They're,
that's a bit annoying that you've given them my phone number. I'm not
they're
going to
very,
lie.
they're very much preaching that there are techniques to enter the next level. So according to Heaven Gates, once the individual has perfected himself through the process, there are 4 methods to graduate to the next level: physical pickup onto a Teller spacecraft and transfer to a next level body aboard that craft, natural death, accidental death, or random death from violence. The graduating soul leaves the human container for the perfected next level body. Outside precaution that leads to death after the deaths of a branch. Oh, hang on, sorry. So this ties into the Waco. So they're basically saying that the people that were in Waco that died, that they go to Heaven's Gate and willful exit from the body in a dignified manner.
Thing is, though, how much have you got to pay to be one of
Nothing.
the
It
ones
seems
that
like
gets
it's
to
free.
go? Is it free?
I think so.
It's not like Scientology then, when you get to like the next phase of the evolution, when you have to pay like 400 quid to get there.
No. So I think this is free, but I think you can transcend yourself.
I'm well up for then. If I'm transcending myself to the next level, I'm up for. Bring it on.
Yeah.
My life's a depressing mess. Like anything, I will transcend to the next level for free. I'm not paying for it, but I mean, my life's depressing as it is. I'll transcend. I'm not fussed.
There we go. So, Cult of the Touch's second show in the bag.
In the bag.
In the bag. So,
we're all quite drunk at this point, to be fair.
Yeah, but we're officially back now. Like, we are the UK's number 1 pirate radio show.
The number 1 show for dead people.
But we are back. We'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. That is English time. Is it GMT? Greenwich Mean Time?
Yeah, I mean, it's not American time, is it? That'd just be weird.
Twitch. Chris is going to get this up on Spotify, podcast.com, iTunes, you name it. You can listen to it.
Basically, Chris does all the work and me and Callum just sit here,
we piggyback on success. All right, so it's Callum, Kai, and Chris signing off.